For tonight's episode of the Mike Sennello Show, we're going to start off with a quote. This one is from Ricardo Lathers, posted 23 minutes ago as a comment in response to me sharing a post regarding tonight's stream. Ricardo says, quote, "I love the amount of misinformation going on here. The whole thing is suspect AF." You don't say, Ricardo. You don't say. So with that out of the way, and with that in mind, we can start tonight's show, which is going to cover some disinformation, is going to involve combating some of that disinformation. But there's actually a much deeper issue that I like to cover here, and it's going to be something of a minor expose. So if you've ever wanted to really get some information that you're going to have a hard time getting your hands on, this is the one. And what we're going to be covering tonight, and with what we're going to be covering tonight, this is the video to share. So if you're tuning in on Facebook, share this on Facebook. If you're tuning in on YouTube, share this on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you have a place to share this sort of thing. This is the video you're going to want to see. Last week we covered all the disinformation, and last week we combated as much of that as we possibly could. We presented the receipts just like we're going to do here tonight. We answered your commentary. We answered your live Q&A, which we're going to get to here tonight. So if you have questions, if you have comments to offer, get them in. Get them in, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. It's probably going to have to wait until the end of the show, which may take me a solid hour and a half, 2 hours to get through, because what we've got is really deep. It's really deep, and I want to keep it consolidated. I want to keep it organized. I want to keep it ordered so everyone can more easily follow along, and so that those folks with whom you share this video will be able to more easily digest the content therein. So for everyone watching at home, before we get started here, this is the video to share. This is the one everyone's going to want to tune in on. And yes, I am stalling a little bit so people have time to do that sort of thing, but this is the one you want to do. This is the one you want to see. And last week we introduced several philosophical terms just to get us started. So to get us started tonight, I'm going to introduce everybody to the term astroturfing. And this page here from Political Dictionary has a pretty good definition that we're going to go into. Astroturfing is an artificially manufactured political movement designed to give the appearance of grassroots activism. It involves presenting a biased or skewed view of public opinion as if it were a genuine grassroots movement, when in fact it is a coordinated effort by a small group of individuals or organizations. And to contrast that with grassroots, unlike grassroots campaigns, which are people rich and money poor, an AstroTurf campaign tends to be the opposite. Well-funded, but with little actual support from voters. Wikipedia has, under its definition section, an okay definition that kind of helps add to it. In political science, astroturfing is defined as the process of seeking electoral victory or legislative relief for grievances by helping political actors find and mobilize a sympathetic public, and is designed to create the image of public consensus where there is none. Astroturfing is the use of fake grassroots efforts that primarily focus on influencing public opinion and typically are funded by corporations and political entities to form opinions. In very short, astroturfing is exactly what the word means in common parlance. To contrast the two with real grass comes up naturally and from the ground up, whereas astroturf is artificial and is installed top down. Well, the key feature to get out of astroturfing is that the movement itself, the whole origin of the thing, is steeped in dishonesty. When we have a movement that is astroturfed rather than naturally emerging, rather than grassroots, the key feature that sticks with you isn't necessarily that it's just artificial, but most important, that it's dishonest. And dishonesty to me is much worse than simply being incorrect. There's more to it. It is one thing to be wrong, and it is another to lie. And so with all that in mind, we had our annual town meeting earlier last week, actually, where we heard the usual line of disinformation, not the least of which was from the common sources that we normally see, like we talked about last week with Jamie Bell. Now, I'm gonna get to this video in just a second. Let me get this pulled up real quick. We're going to get to this video real quick, but as we're watching this video and as we're pausing throughout the course of this 5-minute long video, and we're going to do our best to not pause all that much, because again, this video isn't really that much about disinformation. It's about something that we're going to get into, something that we're going to reveal tonight that's much deeper than just disinformation. Now, with this video we're about to watch, we went over basically all of this last week. Pretty much everything she has to say, we've gone over. Now, there are some new bits of disinformation that we're going to get into, but the question I want people to asking themselves as we're watching is, does this sound, with everything that we've gone over last week, is this video something that sounds like a fair and honest assessment of the video record which we showed last week? Without further ado, here's yet again Jamie Bell.
I am here tonight because I am frustrated, disheartened, and disappointed by what has transpired with our town's education budget. On April 9th, the Board of Finance voted to cut $1.9 million from the proposed school budget without meaningful analysis, without thoughtful debate, and without a single question about how it would impact our schools, our teachers, and most importantly, our students. Not one question was asked. No discussion of the consequences. No evaluation of educational needs. Just a vote.
Does that sound like an honest assessment? Because we watched most of this. They were questions that we showed being asked in the video. There were several questions regarding this. We watched it. So this is just already outright false.
Based on a number arbitrarily calculated.
Arbitrarily calculated.
And how
we went over this last week. If it's based on trying to achieve a mill rate, which is at least roughly in line, or at least in some way ethereally in line with CPI, is it based on nothing or is it based on CPI?
How do we know that number was arbitrary? Well, because the board member who proposed the cut admitted it himself.
You watched the video. You guys all watched the video. Did he admit it himself? Or did he say that he was trying to get things roughly in line with CPI? And that if you're going to say that it's arbitrary to choose, well, let's keep things at CPI, well, then all decisions are arbitrary. Then the decisions made by the Board of Education, by the superintendent, by even Jamie in breaking this presentation is arbitrary.
He called the process, and I quote, a spitball sort of thing.
Again, these are like 6 words that she's quoting. We showed the whole video. We showed minutes at a time. We're showing right now minutes at a time, and we're showing the video in context. Does this sound like an honest characterization, a fair and honest characterization of what I showed on this as the video record on the show last week?
He further acknowledged that he simply, quote, came up with a number.
Everybody comes up with a number. When you calculate something, the resultant is something you've come up with via that process. Again, come up with is 3 words that she's quoting. No surrounding context. Does this sound honest and fair?
Then he went on to say his calculation was, quote, sort of arbitrary, but again, not really. What does that even mean?
If you watch the video and provided the surrounding context, we all watched it. We all understand perfectly clearly what he meant. We covered this on the show, and this is why we do on this show. When we provide receipts, we provide the whole receipt and not 5-word excerpts.
It doesn't sound like he even knows what it means. I guess what I'd ask is, if you went to your accountant and when he or she explained to you how they did their taxes and they told you they kind of did a spitball sort of thing, they came up with a number that was sort of arbitrary, but again, not really, would you go to that accountant again?
Is this a fair analog, right? Is this a fair analog? Clipping these 4 or 5 words at a time completely out of their context, out of the context of a Board of Finance deliberation, and bringing it into the setting of a question of actual financial advice by a licensed financial advisor, around which there is very specific statutory guidelines for the language they're allowed to use. Is this a fair analog for what took place, even assuming that these excerpts that she has, these quotes that she's taking out of context, these 5 and 6 word quotes, even assuming that they're fair, does this sound like an honest analog?
Or trust him, and would you sign your taxes then, if that's how the math was done? So the person proposing the cut didn't clearly explain the logic at all.
He did. We showed multiple videos of this. We showed multiple publicly shared posts about all of this. You guys all saw it. There's no way she didn't see this. He explained it in the meeting in real time. Again, does this sound honest?
Board members who had to consider and vote on that number, they asked no questions. They conducted no
They did ask questions. They especially asked him how he got to that number.
analysis, and they had no discussion.
They did.
How can we possibly accept this as responsible decision making? And beyond the poor decision making, there's even a bigger issue at play: trust and responsibility.
Trust and responsibility. Did you hear that, folks? With all that we're watching here, trust and responsibility. Is there a responsibility to be honest in this type of a setting? We're gonna come back to this. So keep all of this in mind. Bear all of this in mind as we go through tonight.
The Board of Finance isn't just another group making budget recommendations. It has a legal obligation to act in good faith.
And again, we showed you the video. Did they act in good faith? Towards the taxpayers, by the way. They have a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers. Keep all of this in mind.
To be diligent, to be thoughtful, to make decisions based on reason, not impulse.
Okay, we showed Joe providing the reasoning. We showed it in multiple settings, including in real time at that Board of Finance hearing.
Now, lawyers call this a fiduciary duty. I know this because when I'm not a mom, that's my day job. All a fiduciary duty really means is this: they owe us, the residents of New Milford, their best efforts, sound judgment, and honest governance.
Again, so she's bringing up the question of honesty, honest governance. Okay, is this an honest characterization of Joe's rationale for all of this? Who I'm willing to say, Joe DiGregorio. Right? Friend of mine, willing to say this. Does this sound like an honest characterization of what you and I all watched last week?
They are required to act in our best interest.
In the taxpayers' best interests.
Which means not arbitrarily cutting funding without any basis.
He gave you the basis. We've explained it 100 times on this show.
Without any analysis.
So there was a 3-minute time limit, just so folks understand. So somebody is deferring their time to Jamie so she can finish up. This is only going to be another 2.5 minutes, folks.
Without analysis and without accountability.
He provided the analysis.
To be clear, this means that the Board of Finance breached their fiduciary duty.
She's a licensed attorney in Connecticut. Again, does any of this sound honest? Does any of this sound like a fair and honest characterization of the video record I provided?
They did not do what they were elected or required to do.
They were elected and required to provide a number in good faith. And then he explained the faith behind it. They provided that number. And it is a year-over-year increase. Keep that in mind.
This has been a reckless vote, and it has had real consequences. 62 teachers have received non-renewal notices.
And
this threatens the quality of our schools. It also may lead to increased class sizes.
Do you hear what she's implying? She's not saying 62 teachers received notice and how many of them are actually going to be terminated. She's just expecting you to make that leap and going to the product result of what would be the termination. right? So we have the 62 notices. We have the product result of termination. And in between that, where my microphone is, in between that is the terminations. So she's expecting you to make the leap from this to this, right? From the notifications to the product output without the thing in between, without the second step. So what is she implying? How do we get over that second step with the 62 layoff information without any further information? I think it's painfully obvious what's being implied.
And it will diminish so many student resources. Now, look, like I said, I'm a lawyer. I can talk about fiduciary duty all day if you'd like me to, as well as Connecticut General Statute 10-262J, which is the minimum budget requirement.
Which doesn't apply in this situation because we're talking about an over $1 million year-over-year increase. This is why it's imperative to get the language right and to be honest about the language. There has never been a cut to the Board of Education budget because the budget itself, when we say the budget, not the proposal, when we say the budget, it's the one that is actually the budget, especially if we're going to be having an attorney leveraging her position as an attorney. That's what she's leaning on. She's expecting you to trust, to have faith in her, and her good faith, right? As an attorney, as an expert in this field, and then, of course, citing the statute that in this case doesn't apply. Does any of this sound honest?
But what I'd really like to talk about right now is those who will suffer the most. So every student in this room, I'd ask you to please stand up. If you're short, raise your hand. Now, here's the deal. These students only get one chance at a full and meaningful education. They get one chance to build a foundation in kindergarten where learning begins and confidence grows.
Okay, so now we've got political theater, right? Is this political theater in good faith? Based on all of what she said prior to this political theater that's taking place, this leveraging the children, is this using them as a tool to explain an honest take, or is this manipulation? Or is this being extremely manipulative? And by the way, the people that are being manipulated are the viewers, if that's the case. So you as a viewer, is this tugging on your heartstrings? What is that based on? It's got to be based on, ostensibly, what she said previously. And is that honest? Keep all of this in mind, because we're going to talk about a bigger picture real soon.
They get one chance to navigate elementary and middle school, where critical thinking develops and new opportunities emerge. They get one chance to experience high school, where they prepare for college, careers, and their futures. Thankfully, we have more than one chance to fix this catastrophic mistake so that our kids aren't the ones forced to pay the price for this incredibly poor decision-making. The more than 3,500 students in New Milford Public Schools, they are not just numbers to use in calculations. Like you and me, they are New Milford residents. Our elected officials have a duty to support them with a budget that matters and meets their educational needs. The Board of Finance must be held accountable for failing to do the job we elected them to do. That is why I am asking every voter in New Milford to vote no too low at the referendum, because this process was fundamentally flawed, and because our kids only get one shot, and we should refuse to let them get shortchanged. Thank you.
What does it mean that the process itself has been fundamentally failed? Not failed in context, not failed in practice, but fundamentally failed. What would you do to fix a fundamental failure? You would make a fundamental change. You would have a fundamental upending, which, keep that in mind, because we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to this idea. I promise you. We're going to come back to all of this. I want you guys, I laid that down as not just as a way of just dispelling disinformation, but I want you to understand the context surrounding everything that we're going to be talking about tonight. Now, we got to get through some disinformation because it's just been an absolute gish gallop of it over the last 3 weeks. I swear, every time I do a show, I've got another 10 more things I've got to swat away. All right, so, a Board of Ed, there was a claim that a Board of Ed member was threatened with suit. False. There was a conditional threat of exposure If you caused a suit to be filed against the town because of potential negligent act, if you're going to then treat that as an honest, if we're going to, act with charity and say, all right, fine, perhaps that claim is true, that you were threatened with a suit. In order for that to be true, the conditions of a conditional threat of exposure, not even of suit, the conditions would have to be met. And the conditions are, if you caused a suit to be filed against the town that we lost because of a potentially negligent act, is this admitting your own negligence, or is this just false? Again, if we're to be charitable, if we're to apply the best possible take, the most charitable take, it would be that this is just untrue. Spitballing not being a financial term. It wasn't being used. The phrase spitballing was not being used as a financial term. I mean, unless you're to be purposely pedantic, semantically pedantic, and take things to be hyper literal when they're an obvious figure of speech. It's obviously not being used as a literal, legally bound financial term. Like if somebody had said, "Oh, let's go hit the road," or let's hit the ground running. Do you really expect that what they're talking about is a command to go out into the street with a baseball bat and smash the asphalt? What is your preferred method of hitting the road, Jamie? Is it with a baseball bat? Is it with a hammer? Or is it with a car or your feet? And by traveling along it, because that's how figures of speech work. In a democracy, we have systems of responsibility and accountability. So, yeah, what we're talking about is systems of checks and balances. That's what the Board of Finance is. The Board of Finance is a check with a balance of power against a runaway town council or a runaway Board of Education with a financial fiduciary duty to the taxpayers to present something that isn't flying off the handle. And calls to dissolve the Board of Finance, which are going around right now, and which were elicited at this meeting, and send the Board of Education budget straight to the voters, is a call to upend that system of checks and balances. And again, in a town whose system of governance, whose governmental system is as close as you're going to ever get to a direct democracy in the first world in 2025. And that's why I refer to it as a democratic process, because I'm fully aware of the fact that at the federal level, we exist under a constitutional representative republic. However, our municipal government is extremely close to a direct democracy. Every year, the budget has been cut. You've heard this. That's not true. Programming will get cut. Well, perhaps, but why? Why is it that the thing that shouldn't be cut, programming, is the thing that's going to be cut? Are there really not other things that could be cut instead? Why is it that every time the Board of Ed goes crying poor, the first thing they do is institute pay for play? Why is that the first thing that happens? When we all know that one of the very few things where there are actual positive outcomes long term when it comes to public education broadly are these social environments, are sports. It is the wrestling program here in New Milford, the excellent wrestling program we have here in New Milford. Why is it that that's the case? Could it be that there is a serious problem with how the process is required to take place because of statutory guidelines regarding unions, which we'll come back to? As some of you know, too, at this meeting, I spoke as well. I lone wolfed it. There were about, I think it was a total of 40 or so speakers. I lone wolfed it. I went into the lion's den, and I only had 3 minutes, so I had to talk really fast, and I could only address so many false claims, right? The problem with a Gish Gallop is that it takes a lot longer to rebut a claim than to merely make it. And yeah, we have this. Yeah, this is part of. Here we go. Let me get the Gish Gallop brought up again. So for those folks that don't remember, let me get this brought up. Folks that don't remember, the Gish Gallop is a rhetorical technique in which a person in a debate attempts to overwhelm an opponent by presenting an excessive number of arguments without regard, and I would say with an utter contempt for, their accuracy or strength, and with a rapidity that makes it impossible for the opponent to address them in the time available. Gish Galloping prioritizes the quantity of the gallopers' arguments in the expense of their quality. as in they're going on a figurative gallop through various claims and arguments that are just untrue. It's just machine gun, rapid fire, false claims. Remember how I referred to it last week as there's a related topic called the fire hose of falsehood. Remember that phrase? The fire hose of falsehood, also known as fire hosing, is a propaganda technique in which a large number of messages are broadcast rapidly, repetitively, keep that in mind, and continuously over multiple channels like news and social media without regard for truth or consistency. Can anybody think of an example of what that might be? How that might look if it were to take place here in the town of New Milford? So with the firehood of falsehood and with Gish Gallop in mind, firehood of falsehood, that's an interesting way of phrasing. For those who missed, here's my speech. And I'm just here to plug up the fire hose of disinformation that's been spread over the past few weeks. Number one, 62 teachers are not getting terminated for the next school year, and certainly not in response to a $1.662 million reduction in the Board of Education's budget proposal, and a fully retractable notice of non-renewal issued as a matter of contractual policy, as in any other year, is not a strict notice of termination, especially when issued with the full intention of retracting the supermajority of those notices. Further, $1.662 million divided by 62 is $26,806, more than $26,000 below the lowest possible qualified base salary for a full-time teacher per page 45 of the current contract of $52,963, which when multiplied by 62 equates to $3.28 million. Factoring a low estimate of the cost of benefits alone based on 24 to 25 benefits over salaries of 29% gets us to $4.24 million. Of course, essentially zero full-time teachers make only that $52,963, as we know from data regarding actual payouts that were released by Hearst Media. And based on that data, we're talking probably closer to $7 million for 62 teachers to supposedly make up for a $1.662 million shortfall. The truth is that the number is probably going to be roughly 15 and almost certainly not more than 20. Two, no statute governs a year-over-year increase in the Board of Education budget, which is what is on the table. 10262J explicitly refers to a reduction in actual budgets, not current proposals, and would painfully obviously not govern a runaway town council bringing, let's say, a $100 quintillion proposal to the Board of Finance. No law or statute was violated at the April 9th Board of Finance budget deliberations. Three, the Board of Finance does have a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers. That's what a fiduciary duty is. Four, the municipal de facto reductions equate to 2.7% of mayor's proposed, which is a greater percentage than a 2.5% in reductions to the Board of Education proposal. Five, basing a desired mill rate increase on being roughly in line with the current CPI and, ostensibly, what the taxpayers might in good faith actually afford isn't arbitrary by definition, as it's basing it on CPI and what the taxpayers might actually afford and not nothing. Six, the taxpayers aren't ATMs. They're individual human beings with agency and not automatons whose sole purpose is to be machine forced to vomit up all their cash on demand to the infallible institutions of the Board of Education and the teachers and their unions. To treat the taxpayers as ATMs, as so many have, genuinely and explicitly prescribed, is disgusting. Thank you. Which one sounds more honest? You saw me speak. You saw Jamie Bell. Which one to you sounds more honest? I bring up honesty for a reason, which will come to the very end of the show. But speaking of honest, here's Mayor Bass doing his own job of clearing up this information. This is from that same meeting at the very end.
There was some banter here and out about town and its investment in education. And actually, it was to me as well. So I'd kind of like to set the record straight. So first of all, since the year 2020, we've given more than $12 million additional dollars to the educational department. You can look that up yourself.
Video
also,
is folks.
When we needed athletic gear, I was able to get it with the help of the town council. When we needed new band uniforms, I was able to get that. If you take a look at the high school gyms, look up there and you can see the new paint job that was done. That was done by the town's surplus money. Also, new machine because we're putting new sidewalks in. The new machine, that was done by the town of New Milford, surplus money. Also, I toured the schools, turning with Dr. Parlato, turning with Matt Cunningham. I went and assessed these schools. One of the most important things that they needed was HVAC control systems to help. So, in partnership, we went ahead and we used the town surplus funds to help with that. Also, for those that haven't been to the McCarthy Observatory, it's a beautiful observatory. I'm a big guy about astronomy. And their need was they needed a new telescope. So we partnered with the Board of Education and we were able to get a brand new telescope so that everyone can enjoy. Our young kids, our seniors, it's great. Partnering, right? With that as well. I could go on and on of more things that we do together, but there's been some conjecture, unfortunately, because we're in political season now, you're going to hear a lot of stuff. I just wanted you to know that the fact that people do care, people do invest. We want to make sure that our kids are taken care of. Great job you did there, young man. Outstanding job. But I wanted you guys to know that there are things that we do. Also, the new roof that was put on, the high school roof, the new roof at Sarah Noble School. Those principal and interest payments are paid on the town side. And the reason why I bring all that up is harmoniously, we all need to work together. We all need to figure it out because this ecosystem isn't just on one side or another side. It's everybody together. And lastly, the real boss of this whole thing, conjecture is I've heard that the mayor's the boss, the superintendent Parlato's the boss. Really, no.
Budget.
The boss is the taxpayer, is the resident. And they come out on May 20th and they decide what we're going to do. So, again, those that are watching here, those who are here tonight, May 20th, come out, vote, and then we'll know. There you go. Okay? So, again, I thank everybody. Lastly, could I have a raise of hands of all New Milford residents? If you could just raise your hands.
Oh, look at those residents.
I would like to set the town budget, Board of Education, and town referendum date for May 20th, 2025, with the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. at your polling district. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. It's great. Have all this great support, all these people coming in and speaking your mind, and that's what makes this town so great. So thank you, everyone.
So this is the actual, sorry. So notice the mayor asked who was a resident. And there's a reason for that. And that's because this is a town meeting. It's not a town council meeting. It's not a meeting of the Board of Finance. It's not a meeting of zoning. It's not a Board of Education subcommittee meeting. It's not a public hearing. It's not a Board of Education full body meeting. And it's none of those things. It's the actual acting body of the town. It's the actual action of the town itself taking place. Remember what I said about this town's system of government being very close to a direct democracy. And there is a question that all of this raises, which is a legitimate question, and that is, should non-residents be allowed to participate in a town meeting? And legally, I don't know. But my hypothesis is that they really shouldn't be. That if you don't live in New Milford, if you aren't a legal elector, or at the very least own property that would allow you to participate in the referendum anyways, which is what a town meeting, a referendum is nothing more than an extension of a town meeting. It's the same thing. It's just a different way of doing it, right? And Attorney DeBella has explained this 100 times. But if you're not allowed to cast a ballot at the referendum, then obviously you shouldn't be able to vote or act in any way in that meeting. However, should you be allowed to offer commentary? And here's a thought on this. If you aren't allowed to participate in the offering of commentary on the referendum in answering the advisory question, then why would you allow it at a town meeting? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. The advisory question is nothing more than the offering of commentary by the public, by the taxpayers, by the electors, to the rest of the electors, to our actual system of governance. And if you're only allowed to provide an actual commentary on the ballot if you're either an illegal elector or you own property and otherwise would qualify, then why would you be allowed to speak at a town meeting? Now, this is not true of again, a town council meeting or any of these other types of meetings or a public hearing, right? Or an informational forum or a town hall. In all of these settings, the public is merely the public. In this case, the commentary section that's offered at a town meeting is supposed to be the commentary that's offered of the town. So this is my hypothesis as to why, if you don't live in New Milford, you shouldn't be allowed. Now, again, Mayor Bass is doing this to be charitable, let's say, and because he probably knows that it would be utter political suicide in an election year to say as many people in the room now as were not legal residents or, legal electors or, property owners in the town, to say that a ton of people just were not going to be allowed to speak, it would have been career suicide. So with that said, we all saw those folks raise their hands. How many were there that raised their hands? Well, we got this number. We got at least 6 adults with their hands not raised. But of course, all we have is this screenshot. So what else could we go? Well, we could go on the adult speakers. We could go on the video record, which I counted up. I tallied. I was going to provide the actual, a video montage of everybody admitting, whether they're a resident or not, whether they're a teacher, a paid employee with a monetary interest, with a vested interest in a particular decision in this case, right? But, I thought it was in poor taste doing that because either that would have meant like 2 weeks in the editing room or go on my show having a whole bunch of people reveal their home addresses, which is just unnecessary to belabor this point, which is that the tally among the adult speakers who were not me, because I lone wolfed it that night, 18 were residents and 9 were not. So a third of the adult speakers were not residents of New Milford. As far as employees versus non-employees, there were 18 employees that spoke at the podium, 3 non-employees, and 6 that I couldn't really tell. And in addition to this, it's in addition to the 18 New Milford Public Schools teachers, there were 2 non-district teachers, and one was in private, was in public school, 1 union president of, in this case, of the Connecticut Educators Association, which is the Connecticut Teachers Union. They're delegate from New Milford. They're union president in New Milford. 1 union vice president, same thing, from New Milford. 1 PTO president, and 1 who claimed I work in the schools. So I haven't included that I work in the schools as a teacher because I don't know. Does this sound 18-3 and 18-9? Does this sound like a broad snapshot of specifically New Milford electors and property owners? Does this sound like it's just a grassroots of the electors, of, property owners, just generic people? Does this sound like a peppering of various different people? Or does this sound more like a hyper narrow selection of monetarily interested parties who also happen to collectively bargain directly against you, the taxpayer? And by definition, which one seems more plausible to you? In fact, let's get a literal snapshot of the room. And we have a literal snapshot of the room. That's an awful lot. If you can see those T-shirts, if you can see the signs, that's an awful lot of coordination for grassroots to be that hyper-localized in a matter of just 4 weeks. But let's focus in on some of those shirts a little bit more closely. Sorry, let me bring this up. Because if you focus in on those shirts, do they look familiar? Huh. Well, we have that. Well, where is that? Where did I get this post? And why red? Why that particular red? And why that particular font that's being used on that t-shirt? Well, for the first question, we have this. This is where I got that post. This is a group with 1,100 members, which is not only private, but it is also hidden, which means you don't know about it. And you don't know about it because it's private and unlisted, which means you can't even search for it on Facebook unless you were a member. If what was taking place, if what was being organized within this group was honest, wouldn't you want as many New Milford residents to know about its content as you could get? If this was the hub of organizing and planning for all of this, wouldn't it be just simply more efficient, at least, for the dissemination of information for everyone to be let in? For the page to be public? And, that's why, that is at the heart of why things like the News and Politics Facebook page, that is something that I post on regularly. That's why this one is public. Here, let me get my notes back up real quick. And you notice that there's not that many members, 291 members, but, we're public because we want to be held to a fire. My Facebook page with 381 followers, keep that in mind, it's all public. You don't even need a Facebook account to see my page. I've made it as public as you possibly can get because I want as many people to see this information as possible. In addition, because as many people are going to be seeing this information as possible, I have to be honest. I'm a small business owner. I can't stick my neck out like this and be dishonest and get away with being dishonest. I can't do it. I don't have the protection of the ability to sue my own customers if they just decide to say, Mike, you flew off the handle at the town council meeting, and that's wild. And you know what? I can't in good conscience keep funding you flying off the handle. So we're done. Sorry. Imagine if I could turn around and sue my customers if they decided that they didn't want me to mow their lawn because I was flying off the handle at a town council meeting or on my show. I can't do that. And that's because I decide to be, public. You can see all of my content, all of my posts. I've got nothing to hide. And just so folks know, I broke up my personal page from my politics page because I got a lot of friends. I got a lot of friends from like college and from the Ultimate Frisbee community who, and from my business, that really have nothing to do with all this. And I just wanted a place where to publicly and openly talk about politics. Hillary Graham did the exact same thing. But you can't even see, let's go back to that picture. You can't even see so much as that this page exists. So guys, I've been getting screenshots from folks plural, from all over the community about this group. So keep sending them, guys. Keep sending them in. It's not one person. It's not two people. It's a lot. It's like 7 or 8 at least that have been sending me all kinds of screenshots. Bring them so I can disseminate this sort of information. And if you're in this group, you should want this information to get disseminated. If you're honest, you should want this. But this group that you can't even see, this is where you get commentary. Let me get this pulled out. This is where you get commentary like this. There are over 10,000 households in New Milford. The $2 million shortfall is only $200 per household. This doesn't even consider any of the commercial properties out there. It would be a nominal increase in taxes to cover the $2 million shortfall. Come on, people. $200 is basically a rounding error. Oh, yeah, well, fuck them ignorant taxpayers. I guess they really are just literal ATMs that you can just punch the button, get the money, punch the button, give me the money, punch the button, give me the money. They're just there to spew out like a machine and be walked all over like a machine, spew out money for whatever causes, seem to suit your political convenience or your whim. And of course this is the page where we get all disinformation like this. And excuse me while I pull it up on my camera so I can actually read it. Its impact on the schools will be horrific. Over 70 teachers received notice they are getting pink slipped. Is it 70 or over 70 or 62, folks? We've been over this. So they're already false. I know budgets are not cut and dry. I attended every budget hearing and read through them all. If the budget passes the way it is, our schools will not come back for decades? Is that a fair characterization? Joe DiGregorio said he wanted to, quote unquote, shock the system. We played the clip. His exact words were, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. When he proposed this reduction. And of course, there's this, we're going to get back to these budget talking points. It has that photo in the beginning that's attached to this comment. We'll get back to that in just a second. But of course, there was this response. Shock the system is what really gets me. Are you serious? No, he's not serious. This isn't true. This is just false. Who will that benefit? Not the kids. Infuriating, especially considering how none of them have stepped foot in a school building. You mean like Joe DiGregorio, who has kids in the system and has absolutely been inside the school. So those talking points from the previous graphic, keeping all of this in mind, this is where all of this nonsense, all of just utter disinformation, this is where it's originating from. This is where it's organizing. This is where it's collating. This is the heart of the beast. This page that I just talked about. And those talking points from the previous graphic comes from this pages that we're talking about. The 1,100 members comes from the page's sister page that Megan Bird started years ago. Let me pull that up so you guys can see that. That's from here. And if you scroll down, you can go and see reallyGreatSite.com. So you would have to know to go to the site, which is a site that's built for forming these types of graphics. Now, I have video editing software, and it's not something I'm hiding at all, right? You guys are watching it right now. Anyone who went to various town council meetings over the last however many years when I was handling the broadcast saw all the video equipment and has to know all the software that goes, in addition to that hardware that I have. So I'm not hiding the ball in any of this, but these are your budget talking points, right? And that's where this comes from. And by the way, this is from the sister page, which is public and has a whopping 188 followers, which is down one from when I finished my notes at 1 o'clock this morning. So in less than 24 hours, in a lot less than 24 hours, this page has lost a follower at net. 188 followers. This is the public one. This is one everyone has seen. But we can compare that to me at 381, and we compare that to Hillary with her page at 647. And in her case, it's something that she spent way, way more time and money on than I have on my page, right? So you would expect her to have, 600, a lot more followers because she was the DTC chair. She was an elected official. She got elected to the town council. So you would fully expect that a page that she's spending way more time on than me and spending money on. I haven't spent a dime on my page, right? But she's spending a ton of money on it. And then on top of that, she's running a mayoral campaign this year that she publicly announced last week. So it's not any big secret for me to reveal that now. So you would fully expect that page to have a ton of followers. And you know what? 647, God bless her, is almost double mine. But this secret group with its 1,100 followers is almost double Hillary's number. And this secret page is also where you get the organization for the mailing of disinformation and propaganda cards. So let's go. Let's pull that up. This one right here. Okay, here we go. So this is the front page of this disinformation and propaganda card. And yeah, we can go to the back page where we can see the actual note that's attached to it. This is part of a postcard campaign. Hi, Jessica. The Board of Finance, excuse me, I have to zoom in here, approved a cut to the Board of Education budget of almost $2 million. No, the budget was not cut. The proposal for this year was, but the actual budget wasn't cut. Remember, language matters. We went over why this matters. This hurts our children. This hurts our town. Please vote no too low. Bring to I can't read the rest of this. May 20th. Thank you, Alex. So I don't know who Alex is. I have an idea, but we don't have to go over who that is. But this is yet another thing that's taking place. Yet another coordinated piece of disinformation that's originating from that secret page. It's where you get the organization for the use of school grounds for a political campaign. The use of school grounds for a political campaign. You can see this taking place in the parking lot of the high school. This is where you're getting all of this. Remember what I said originally about honesty and the themes of all of this conversation. It's all the change.org petition to completely upend our democratic process here in town. I want to make sure I've got the right I want to make sure this is correct. Make sure I got the right tab open. No, I don't. Here, let me pull that up. We'll pull up. We're not going to read through this whole petition. Here we go. Give consumers the right to all. 272 verified signatures. Remember, my entire following that I've built up over years is 381 followers. Megan Bird in her public page, the following she's built up, right, is only 188 followers. 272 verified signatures. The issue to the Connecticut State we on their side residents, let me zoom in so that everybody can read this, of New Milford and the state of Connecticut demand the introduction of statewide recall legislation that empowers voters to remove elected officials before the end of their term when they fail to serve the public interests. There's already a process for ousting somebody midterm, and it's through our ethics committee. There's already a process for this. And this should be an additional process that would allow voters to remove elected officials before the end of their term when they fail to serve the public interest. What does that mean? This call is urgent following the actions of the New Milford Board of Finance, which were perfectly legal and perfectly within reason. And the reasons were spelled out. We covered this. Remember, I provided the video record with huge amounts of context, which recently decreased the school budget. False. Threatening the quality of education of thousands of local students. Despite public outcry and concern of parents, teachers, educators, the board has pushed forward decisions that will directly harm class resources, teacher, and students. They disagree with the number. The Board of Finance had a process. That process is prescribed by our constituting document, which is the town charter. Why even have that document? If you're going to say you don't like the number that they came to, and that's a reason for their ouster, and that should be done on a de facto whim, how is that keeping in line with democracy? This is an upending of that process. We have a constituting document that spells out the process for elections and the terms of an election. Why even have terms? Why not just every hour of every day institute a recall? Because I don't like the numbers. I don't like what's taking place. Why not waste the taxpayers' time with this? We have good reason for that, and it's built into the themes, the ethos, and the spirit of our founding documents, of our constituting documents. There is a lot of organization and money to have just naturally emerged in the 2+ weeks that transpired between April 9th and when these screenshots went out. But all these screenshots that I've shown you, this isn't the worst of it. And again, thanks to everyone sending me these screenshots. It's not just one person. It's a lot of people. All of you. It's all of you who have been sending me these screenshots from this group. Thanks so much. Keep them coming. But here's something that I got. And, like I said, so far it's just been disinformation and dishonesty. But now we have this. Sign up here for more lawn signs. We'll do a second run. Now, this is a screenshot. So I have for me to get to this page, I had to actually type in that URL manually, right? And here's where it takes you. And I took a screenshot because this page is, after I do this stream, this page is almost certainly going to get taken down. Almost certainly. In fact, it might have already been taken down, but this is where this takes you. And yes, I have redacted a lot of information, which you guys will understand in just a minute. And yeah, no, I can't zoom in. Sorry, folks. So what I've done here, let me get to this page. I have to zoom in on my own. I'll read it out loud to you guys so you guys can see this. If you round 2 lawn sign order form. So this is the second round. If you missed the first order of 200, I am working on a second order. I will know tomorrow pricing, depending on how large the order is and arrival date. Okay, we don't really even need to read the rest of this. Already, they've handed out 200 lawn signs. This screenshot was sent to me 2 weeks ago. So this happened some time ago. That means that all of this organization was taking place right after the April 9th meeting. Right after it. Somehow they managed to come up with enough money for 200 lawn signs. And for the record, yeah, I got mine, right? Vote yes, the taxpayers aren't ATMs. You guys will start seeing them. If you guys want them, let me know. I got a few more. Not many more, but I got a few more. When I bought them at the cheapest website, I have it on good account that this is the cheapest possible website to buy your signs. When I bought them, they were about $12.50 a sign. About $12, $12.50 a sign. Okay. $12.50 times 200 is $2,500. And remember, I provided a screenshot, so specifically so I can redact personal information, because 200 signs is a lot of money. And I realized that, like, I didn't buy 200 of them. I bought 30. And you can save some money on scale, but not that much. Not that much. That's $2,500 for the first batch of 200, which is, of course, above, let me get this pulled up, above the $1,000 threshold that the state statutes require for the establishment of a political action committee. Individuals acting alone and using personal funds may also make unlimited independent expenditures and need not form a political committee. They do not need to file anything, excuse me, if spending is $1,000 or less in the aggregate. This is over $2,000 in one event. If they spend or obligate to spend in excess of $1,000 in the aggregate, the individual must file a financial disclosure statement called an SEC Form 26 long for the first filing, and all these forms for any subsequent filings. These filings generally are due according to the regular filing dates and candidate committees, but more frequently for certain elections during specific timeframes as laid out below. Because an individual who spends or incurs over $1,000 in independent expenditures is required to disclose, it is highly recommended that such an individual keep track of their spending so they know when they hit the $1,000 trigger. And yes, I did go to the general statutes. It's really boring. It's just a much more digestible explanation. And this is from seec.ct.gov. You can't get more official than that. Now, why this would apply in this case is it's because it's toward a referendum. It's toward a referendum event, right? And that's explained up here. But that means that whoever put this together had to have put together a political action committee, or they violated the law. So let's be charitable. Remember what I said about good faith, honesty. Let's be charitable and assume, okay, maybe they have a pre-existing group. Pre-existing groups are entities or informal associations that have an existing bank account that was established for reasons other than spending on candidates. So let's think of something that might qualify as that. The funds in the bank account cannot have been raised for the purpose of spending on candidates, etc. Pre-existing groups include organizations, businesses, both for-profit and non-for-profit, whether organized in Connecticut or any other state, taxpayer groups, parent-teacher associations, and other similar groups. Like individuals, pre-existing groups may, acting independently, make unlimited independent expenditures, provided that pre-existing groups that spend $1,000 or less on independent expenditures from their existing treasury funds are not required to report as long as they do not raise new funds for the purpose of making the independent expenditure, in which case they would be required to form a political committee. See below. So somebody just forked over a ton of money as a group, because remember, individually you have to file a form, right? And they did absolutely no raising of funds. This group did no raising of funds. So where would that money come from? What would the group be that would do that? Or much more charitably, there's already a PAC, because you see all the conditions here. There's a very narrow pathway to avoid these conditions, and man, is it narrow. And it's tough for me to believe that, that somebody has threaded this needle so perfectly. So let me pull this up. Let's go back to that original group photo, because remember, pre-existing groups, huh? Let's go back to this original group photo. This is the room. You guys saw it. We saw it before. Where did I get this photo? Remember all of the people who spoke? And the two that were the president and vice president of the local teachers union? Connecticut Education Association. New Milford's town meeting is packed with a crowd overflowing out into the hallway. This isn't them sharing somebody else's post. This isn't somebody posting to the CEA's page as themselves. This is the official page of the Connecticut Education Association. This is their official account. So this is coming directly from the union. It's right there on their page. And here's the thing. We can turn this screenshot around and we can see who took the photo. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Let me get rid of this. So this is about a second or two off. This is from the video, the publicly available video. This is just a few seconds off from that photo that I showed you. Just a few seconds off. Maybe a few seconds before. And you can see that the photo was taken from behind Stephanie Barksdale and to her left. Well, photo left. So let's zoom in a little bit further. Okay, we can see somebody wearing a red jacket. Let's keep that in mind, that red jacket. And we can see that she's got a camera. This wasn't somebody just pulling out their phone. This is somebody with a camera. And let's zoom in just a little bit further so we can get a better understanding of, ooh. This is a dedicated unit, and it's probably a pretty high-end camera. Why would you have a pretty high-end camera to take a photo like the one I showed you? You could just take that. You could have just taken that with your phone. The only reason you would have a camera like this in 2025 is if you were doing it so regularly that you were getting paid to do it. And you were using this camera because you need a camera that's got a ton of data in each photo. I own a media production company. We do video. So I have video cameras that are very high end. You guys are seeing it right now. You're seeing the fruits of that right now. I don't have a still camera. I have my phone. And I use the video editing software I have to get pictures, cleaned up, right? And when I'm promoting stuff for my business, my landscaping business, right? So you wouldn't have this camera unless you were doing something extremely regularly to the point where you're getting paid to do it. And it's kind of a lot of money. So you wouldn't be doing this unless you needed a ton of information to be coming from. So this is something that's in the area of a profession. And it looks to me like one hell of a camera, and it's not just someone's phone. And the CEA, these teachers union, just happened to get that photo uncompressed and posted it as the CEA on their Facebook page. This is all just a very expensive coincidence. It's what we're talking about, a coincidence. Is that what we're supposed to believe? Well, let's peruse their page. Let me get the Chrome out. April 25th. April 25th. This is what would that be? That'd be 16 days after the April 9th Board of Finance meeting in New Milford. This coming week provides opportunities on April 30th, CEA Lobby Day, and May 1st, International Workers' Day, to take action in support of teachers in public education. Do those t-shirts look familiar? Does anybody remember those t-shirts? That was April 25th. Here's April 29th, 4 days later, about a rally at a different location. Do these signs look familiar? Do these t-shirts, does this merch look familiar? This is a different location from the first post I showed you. This is still not New Milford. Here's one from May 2nd at the Capitol. Do these t-shirts look familiar? So all of these events taking place at different locations at different times, all being pasted on the union's website, with all of these very similar looking t-shirts and all this very similar looking merch. And here's another post from their Facebook page, all but admitting the CEA was behind a rally prior to a Board of Education meeting in Stamford. May 2nd. A week. So let me look at my calendar real quick. This is in the week and days and week leading up to the town meeting that happened here in New Milford. Here's from one from May 3rd, admitting outright that they have been at least generally behind the organizing of these rallies across the state. What a great outpouring of solidarity. CEA joined thousands of union members and community groups at May Day rallies organized around the state. Organized around the state. What a great outpouring of solidarity. Yeah, here's a live video streamed streamed directly to the CEA account. We're not going to play it. It's live video streamed directly to the union account from the New Milford rally on the 6th of May. And here's two posts to show that this has been a mounting campaign. Here's two posts from their Blue Sky account, pumping out the attention even further. Okay? Here's their own website spewing the same dishonest claims that you've heard everywhere for the last 4 weeks. 62 positions on the line as New Milford education supporters tell residents to vote no, too low. Are they really on the line? Did we do the math for this last week? What does the math say? What would you say if you were to follow the science or trust the science? Hundreds of students, parents, and educators flooded New Milford Green this week, rallying to protest nearly $2 million in cuts to New Milford's proposed school budget. Well, at least they got the fact that it's a proposal, right? New Milford is one of many communities across the state struggling with education cuts this spring. In New Milford's case, the proposal to cut the town's education budget was a surprise action from the Board of Finance that Joe had been making public for months up to that point. And that everybody could have seen coming if you knew what we were looking at. We were looking at either jacking up tax rates or lowering expenses. We had no choice. So one of the two things was going to take place. Now the community is rallying, urging residents to turn out for the budget referendum on May 20th to vote no and select the option on the ballot indicating that they think the school budget line is too low so that education funding can be restored. Let's not sugarcoat this. What the Board of Finance did was fast, calculated, and cold, CAA President Kim Patella told the overflow crowd. So we're quoting the teacher. We're quoting CEA President Kim Patella. Okay. Do you wonder why the news coverage, by the way, on all of this has been so overwhelmingly one-sided? Is it because this is a, 99-1 naturally emergent event? Remember when speed cameras were proposed? Do you remember what the result of that was? Yeah, 3-1 against. Like nobody wanted them. Nobody wanted them. And yet, did we get that kind of coverage? Is it because this is a 99-1 against naturally emergent event? Here's the News Times. Here's the News Times going through the same propaganda ringer you've seen everywhere else. Some upset by $1.6 million school budget cut. Residents vow to defeat New Milford municipal budget. And it goes through the same disinformation that we've been talking about. Here's WTIC, our Fox station. We have to sit through an ad, apparently. We're not going to watch the whole thing. Here's conveniently giving only one side of the story. How long is this? This is 2 minutes and 49 seconds, so we'll watch just a little bit of it because there were news cameras. Hold on, we got to turn on the desktop audio. Here we go. Let's start this over so folks can hear it.
Teachers in New Milford who received pink slips are speaking up about it. Like this car behind me says, I am one out of 62. They're not the only ones making their voices heard. Students and parents are...
About 20% of New Milford teachers were recently laid off, putting things in limbo for the future for the district.
Also expressing their concerns about a proposed $2 million cut to the Board of Education budget.
Holly Mackey to the plane.
This is what they're showing. This is like 4 speakers in.
Northville.
Emotions were high at the start of Tuesday's town council meeting in New Milford.
It wasn't a town council
meeting. It kicked off with Tricia Ambrosio reading off the names of teachers who recently received pink slips.
The most.
So we're gonna interview her.
I believe in our
quick.
district was cut for middle school, and middle school is that time where those students need.
So they were at the rally. And they were in the meeting room. Did they stay to wait to hear potential opposition like from me? No. They were gone in 30 minutes. Did they even try to get their hands on the public domain video feed, publicly available on the town's YouTube channel, like I did? No. Did they go to the streets at this rally? Did they go to the streets and ask random people walking down the street to try to get an unbiased take at least? No. What was there any TV coverage of the Children's Center when all that took place? The Children's Center hubbub back in 2016? No. Was there any coverage of the 3-1 opposition and outrage against the state's potential installation of speed cameras? No. But it's there now. So let's go back to that original union website. Teacher Appreciation Week deals are here. Specials on merch just for teachers. Let's see what they are. Of course, we click on this and it's an expired link. So I have to go to the archive. I have to go to the Wayback Machine to get this. Does any of this look familiar? Like any of the screenshots that we've shown, does this look familiar? So exactly the same color pattern and font you see everywhere else. Exactly the same thing you're seeing everywhere else, including the original photo. Remember, either $2,500 when it comes to those yard signs was illegally spent without a reporting, or something else was behind the spending that already existed. Couldn't be the CEA itself. It'd have to be a separate PAC acting on behalf of the Connecticut Education Association Political Action Committee. As of 11/14/2024. So this is active. So is the CEA behind all of this? Was this all just astroturfing from the get-go? I'm going to have to zoom in, folks, to read this. So bear with me for a second while I get everything zoomed, getting taken care of. Please join us as we show support for our schools. We will be attending the CEA-sponsored Turn the Green Red for Ed rally on the green from 5:30 to 7 to stand in solidarity with the 62 teachers who received non-renewal notices due to massive budget cuts the Board of Finance is trying to get passed. We will be there, rain or shine, bringing attention to the fact that our schools cannot sustain these massive cuts to the budget presentation unanimously approved by our Board of Education. Save Our School Budget Rally, Tuesday, May 6th, 5:30 p.m. CEA sponsored Turn the Green Red for Ed event. So the CEA sponsored the whole thing on May 6th. Open admission right there. Open admission that this whole thing has been astroturf right from the start. Open admission that this is a union-backed and funded entire campaign of propaganda and not some naturally emerging ground-up event. Open admission that the whole impetus for this isn't actual care for kids in education, which can come from places other than government, right? Education can happen in places that aren't just top-down government-style education, but you'll never hear them mention any of those interests. But strictly a matter of public, or is this strictly a matter of a public sector union acting against taxpayer interests and for the interests of those jobs we can't afford? Imagine if one of my customers said, Mike, times are tough and we just can't afford you. We're going to have to just find another way. And I had all of this backing to outright lie to my customers endlessly and politically strong-arm them into changing their minds. Would that be an honest way of doing business? If I had that government-protected union to guarantee my job at that level, would I have any incentive whatsoever to engage with any degree of honesty? Remember, almost all of the organizing events and propaganda are happening on a page you can't even search for. (1,100 members, more than 3 times my following, More than roughly 10 times the following of the public group Megan Bird started, who was the head of the PTO and an actual town resident. Almost twice Hillary Ram started following, who is the former DTC chair, who got elected to town council and has been a major party nominee in multiple elections for multiple positions at multiple levels of government. Instant name recognition. She spent money building this following and still not at the level of this private hidden group, which is, as of last night, when this screenshot was sent to me, this screenshot was sent to me, up over 200 members in just 2 weeks. Again, they've gained more members in 2 weeks than Megan's public group has total. And the 2 pages were created within 3 weeks of each other in the same year in 2018. You can't get that disparity in traction from a naturally emergent event. The whole thing has been completely submerged in dishonesty from the get-go. And I keep bringing up honesty because the 2 absolutely most critical elements of good faith are charity and honesty. You can't have good faith without honesty. I've been as charitable as I can. I've provided the receipts, but when the circumstantial evidence lines up and they openly admit it, what am I supposed to say? The whole campaign has been steeped in bad faith from the get-go, which means there is zero reason to give this campaign any credence or trust. They genuinely don't care about the taxpayers. This is why their followers explicitly agreed when I asked them if they think the taxpayers are ATMs. They don't have your interests in mind. They don't care what you can and can't afford. Hence the flippant treatment about what this will cost you. And now you know. Now you've seen the evidence. Now you know. Spread the word to the normies, everyone. Share this video, and for God's sakes, get out and vote. Now, we don't have to give this bad faith AstroTurf campaign of just outright disinformation directly against your interests an inch of breathing room, so we have to vote yes. Yes, you also have to vote too high on the advisory question. We're going to go over this in just a second. So to show you just a sample ballot of what you're going to be seeing. So I have a sample ballot that some of you have seen on my page right here. And so you're going to see that there's 2 questions to answer. And what we have to do, normally I would say vote no, too high. But then we concede the no ground to the opposition. We give the Board of Finance and Town Council the opportunity to screw this up. We drag the process out longer than I have time, money, and energy to lone wolf against, which would be me lone wolfing against the propaganda machine. So we're just stuck voting yes to create that wall of defense. If the budget just passes as is, we don't have to worry about what might happen at a second referendum or what might happen if either the TC or Town Council or Board of Finance fly off the handle. And what we get is the lowest mill rate increase in Connecticut. What we get out of this is the lowest mill rate increase in Connecticut. Would I like the budget to be flat, knowing what's coming down the road in a revaluation year? Yes, yes, yes. But there's a serious risk that this thing goes the wrong way if either side of the budget fails at referendum. So we have to vote yes. And that's why I've been putting out these yard signs, right? That everybody can see. Right? So yes, I have yard signs. I'm going to be making some rounds tonight to folks. Thanks to everyone who came. Thanks to everyone who came to the event. Here, let me get the yard sign back up so you guys can see it on the full screen now. Vote yes, the taxpayers aren't ATMs. Yeah, so I'm sure you guys saw my post about all that. If you want a yard sign, let me know. And, I'll private message me your address so I can get out to you. We'll be talking about what happened at last night's town council meeting another night. But now you know the information. Now you have it. I'll be making some rounds tonight with some yard signs. Now you have the information. Share it. Share it. I'll trim up this video in post so that we don't have that intermission at all. But now you have that information. And now you need to share it. I want to see these yard signs so that people get it, right? So thanks to all the people that have taken yard signs. There have been a bunch. Thanks to all the people that came to the north end of the green yesterday at 5 o'clock and had a conversation with us. I kind of get the feeling we are the silent majority, and it's a very silent majority. And I want to see these yard signs. If you have friends that are hearing this propaganda and are falling for it, show them this video. Show them this video. We provided the receipts. The whole thing is astroturfed. The whole thing has been dishonest from day one. And now you have the proof. And with that, let's see what you guys have to say. MFH, the New York City fly guy. Bring Elon in. Doge him. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what Joe DiGregorio has been accused of being, is Elon, Joe Musk, or, Elon DiGregorio, or something along those lines. Joe Doge. So, yeah, folks, by the way, thanks for tuning in on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in on Facebook. We're going to be migrating long-term over to YouTube, so you guys should start watching this on YouTube instead of Facebook, for reasons I explained last week. So let's see what people have to say on Facebook here. Folks, you'll have to bear with me a little bit because I have to extend this so I can reach and see everybody's commentary on the other computer. Does somebody hear a clown talking? I think one is trying to comment, but he's being ignored because he has 2 brain cells. Okay, sure. Very useful. Very. Your ad hominem, argumentum ad hominem, totally convinced me, Chad. Totally convinced me. Chad, the bowling pins need to be cleaned. You mean the $135 to $270 per year on average per household? It works out too. Yeah, I guess we are just fucking ATMs. Fuck us, right? Anyone who can't afford to have their taxes go up, just fuck them. Just pitchfork them. Their interests don't matter. What a disgusting, rotten take. The taxpayers aren't ATMs. We are individual human beings with agency. And it would be nice if certain folks in this town would stop treating us like automatons, to be machine force fed, to be forced like machines to be just dump out cash at a whim. It's only $135 to $217. Okay. Then you can afford to not, if that's all it accounts for, is that little. If you're saying that it's not that much, then it's not that much, and you can vote in favor of the thing. Town surplus money. What a crock of shit. The town gets $17 to $20 million in energy cost sharing from the state. Oh boy. Yeah, and it goes just one hand right to the other every year, from the municipal side to the Board of Ed side. The town also gets $1.2 million in tuition paid by Sherman, which apparently is lower tuition than the cost per student here, which, if you're going to say that, okay, well, variable costs, well, then we need to hear the variable costs. We need to hear what they are. And what is the independent variable? By the way, this information has been requested at every joint budget hearing for as long as I've been following it, which goes back to at least 2016, at least that long. And it's never been offered. What's the independent variable? If we're going to talk about, variable costs, what's the independent variable? And what are, in financial accounting terms, what are the variable costs? Fixed costs aren't costs that you're quote unquote forced to increase each year. No, fixed costs are like the buildings, are like your electric bill. I believe I should change the Facebook page to residents who are voting yes on the school budget. Okay. Oh, look, a union rep is here. Okay. I'm not a union rep, just a member. All right. Okay, so it sounds like there's interesting commentary going between folks here on the Facebook feed. How many budgets has the BOE run a surplus? All of them. Now, in their defense, if they don't run a surplus, then there's ECS grants that we would just be disqualified from. And it's actually a lot. But yes, every single year, there's been at least $1 million surplus every year. We all have kids and we all pay a price and the kids benefit from it. Okay. Ricardo, Mike, I don't have a yard sign. Ricardo, message me privately. I'm going to make some rounds tonight. I might have to be kind of quiet and just kind of like leave it outside your door so I'm not waking people up at like 9 o'clock at night. But yeah, Ricardo, happy to get you as many as you want. Message me how many you want. Message me your address. I'll make the rounds tonight. How many airtakes have you given out, Mike? 20? It sounds about right. Yep. Elizabeth got real quiet quick when the union was mentioned. Yeah, okay. I'm just curious. Jesus, my fingers tonight. Yeah, well, I mean, you don't have to provide commentary. I like it because it helps the algorithm at the very least. But, hey, Mike, taxes go up. That's what happens. Sorry, you can't stop that. Yes, you can. What a disgusting take. Sorry, taxes go up. We're just going to raise them. Nothing you can do about it. Never mind the will of the voters. Never mind the interests of the taxpayers. No, we're just going to raise them. Fuck you. Right? Well, what an undemocratic way of doing things in what is very close to a direct democracy here in New Milford. Oh, no, never mind the electors. Never mind the voters. No, we're just going to raise taxes. Fuck them. Fuck them. They go up every year. Fuck them. Ron, any funds that are not fully encumbered by the end of the district's fiscal year are returned. Darn it. Yeah. See, this is part of why I want to migrate away from Facebook, because the commentaries feed is really hard to follow. It bounces around on me for no apparent reason. It can only be used with Board of Finance and Town Council approval. Taxes always go up. Yeah. It's too bad, isn't it? It shouldn't. That shouldn't be the case. They shouldn't always go up. Again, I asked this question in good faith. What if, hypothetically, because we're working from within the framework of a hypothetical, student enrollment, tomorrow, permanently declined to zero? Would you still demand an increase in the year-over-year expenditures? If enrollment declined permanently tomorrow to zero. Never mind if it's possible. Never mind how you get there. We're operating from within the framework of the hypothetical. Oh, the hypothetical isn't real. Yes, that's right. It's a hypothetical. That's how they work. That's how they work. And I'm sorry that you don't understand how hypotheticals work. And I'm sorry you don't understand why you bring them up, because it gets to the root of the matter. All you have to do is answer the question yes or no in good faith. And you would demonstrate irrefutably that it's all in good faith. And we talked about this on the show tonight. If you're going to refuse to engage in good faith, then why should I assume good faith? Why shouldn't I assume that if you're going to only by axiom engage in bad faith, that it's going to be that you're acting in bad faith? Why shouldn't I do that? All you have to do is answer the question yes or no. But no one will do it. And we all know why. But the cost of the service provided by taxes increase naturally. The taxes will increase to meet the need. Not necessarily. A lot of what the government does can be handled significantly better by the private sector. And the taxes don't have to increase. They really don't. You know, and here's the other thing. Like, if everyone just got fed up with the public school system and said, nah, we're homeschooling. Everyone said that. Screw this. Would the taxes go up? Would you prescribe that the taxes go up? If enrollment tomorrow decreased to zero permanently, would you still demand a year-over-year increase? Hypothetically, if we all died tomorrow, we wouldn't pay taxes anymore. Okay, so if you're willing to engage in good faith with the hypothetical, I dare you, double dog dare you to answer the question. Answer the question. If enrollment suddenly declined tomorrow to zero for whatever cause, because the cause is irrelevant, the hypothetical presupposes this is a condition of the hypothetical, to zero, would you still demand a year-over-year increase? Mike, don't explain anything to Chad. He has an IQ of a pool noodle. Well, I mean, Hanlon's razor is an interesting concept. Let me bring that up. We're talking about philosophical concepts. Let's bring up Hanlon's razor, and we'll close the show on this. Hanlon's razor. Let me pull this for everybody so you can see it. And we'll go to Chrome. Hanlon's razor is an adage or rule of thumb. It's a heuristic, not really an adage. A heuristic is a rule of thumb that states, never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. So that's Hanlon's razor. I go to extraordinary lengths to apply Hanlon's razor because of charity, because of the principle of charity. In philosophy and rhetoric, the principle of charity or charitable interpretation requires interpreting a speaker's statements in the most rational way possible and, in the case of any argument, considering its best, strongest possible interpretation. In its narrowest sense, the goal of this methodological approach is to avoid attributing irrationality, logical fallacies, or falsehoods to the other statements, when a coherent, rational interpretation of the statements is available. According to Simon Blackburn, it constrains the interpreter to maximize truth or rationality in the subject saying. This is, in the case of charity, one of the two most important aspects of good faith is assuming charity. And Halen's razor, is what you shouldn't, is a heuristic that suggests you shouldn't apply to malice what you can easily attribute to incompetence. So, are we to attribute all of this discussion to incompetence or to malice? I'll let you guys decide. You guys have seen the receipts. I'm very public about all of this. I engage with the public. I don't care. I make my politic public. I don't hide it. This is what I genuinely believe, and I can show the receipts to support the claims that I make. And now that you guys have seen the receipts, now you know. See you guys on May 20th. Good night, everybody.